Alright, what's up everybody? It's Cross Collects Comics and it's time for another top 10 list. This week I'm going to be talking about my top 10 picks for Green Lantern comics that you should be checking out right now. So stay tuned. So, over the course of the past year or so, one superhero has begun to just get my attention, and I thought, hey, let me do a top 10 list about this. Now, I'm not necessarily what I would call a fan. I've thought the character was cool. I was not, I didn't walk away from the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie thinking, oh man, that character's a loss. I remember walking away from it and thinking that character has the potential to be what Iron Man is for the MCU to the DC film universe. We haven't seen a whole lot of the character on screen, but I'm hoping that with the new regime at Warner Brothers that we're going to see some more cool stuff coming from the Green Lantern cosmic side of the universe, and that got me interested. I started looking through and researching, and so now I'm thinking about actually adding some large Green Lantern keys to my 2023 collecting goals list. But all that's later on. What I wanted to do right now was just share with you some of the stuff that I found really interesting about this character and this cast of characters, because one of the interesting things about Green Lantern is that he is actually he's one officer of a total, like a huge intergalactic space force, space police force, like a cosmic police force. And so much like Nova in the MCU, except in my opinion, way cooler. Remember, I'm a Nova fan, way cooler with Green Lantern. There are a bunch of them. So this list isn't going to cover any specific Green Lantern. I'm actually jumping around between a bunch of different ones. So I hope that this list is one that you enjoy. I hope that you see why I put some of the comics on here that I did. And I hope above all that this excites you about this whole corner of the DC universe, and even the DC universe in and of itself, and you say, hey, I might want to pick up a few of those books, especially with the restructuring going on at Warner Brothers Discovery as of the recording of this video. I truly believe that there could be a lot of things changing over there, and I think that Green Lantern could end up rising to the top and being just I think they could realize how underutilized the character is. So without any further talking, here are my top 10 picks for Green Lantern comics that you should be buying right now. So number 10 on my list is Green Lantern number 40. Now I put two books on here. Green Lantern number 48 and 51 of Volume 3 of Green Lantern. This is the first appearance of Kyle Rayner, the Green Lantern of the 90s. The first Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern, and the first Kyle Rayner Green Lantern cover appearance with full story appearance. So Kyle Rayner so this is that transitional storyline in which Hal Jordan is phased out of being the primary Green Lantern that we've seen. He's the Hal Jordan that we've known in the Silver Age. Of course, Alan Scott was the Golden Age Green Lantern, but Hal Jordan has been the standard for Earth-based Green Lanterns for much of modern history in comic books. Now, we've had others who we're going to cover, like Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, John Stewart, others, Jessica Cruz, and then Simon Baz. There's been a whole bunch of others. However, Hal Jordan has just kind of been that classic Green Lantern figure that I remember growing up. And so, really that entire storyline is worth picking up. For number 10, I'm just spotlighting 48 and 51. I haven't always agreed with how Kyle Rayner has been handled as a character, but he's an important figure nonetheless. These back issues are all very affordable and in great supply. I just picked up a really high grade copy of number, I think 50, of number 51 no, I think it was one of them, and it was like, I think it was like $6, and so and that was a high grade copy. So it's very easy to find the entire storyline. I do recommend finding the entire storyline. I don't think you'll get that great of a deal, but you should be able to get the whole set of the storyline, 48 all the way through 51, 48, 49, 50, and 51 for well under $100 grade dependent. They're so plentiful that you can even still find them for just a few bucks in back issue bins, even some dollar bins. So go hunting. That's number 10 on my list. Number 9 on my list of Green Lantern comics that you should consider buying right now is Green Lantern number 1 from Volume 4. So this was the 2005 relaunch of the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, written by Jeff Johns, and he's just having fun with this run. This is a fun comic to pick up. It's not the best storyline, but it's a fun jumping on point for those who might be saying, looking for an inexpensive way to get into the character, get to know the character a little bit, and then potentially start to purchase higher dollar books. I think one of the variants had the Alex Ross cover. It might have been the A, but this kicks off a really entertaining run that makes for fun reading, and it can also be found at fairly low price. You can even purchase the entire storyline as a bulk lot on eBay or at a local comic shop. And even if you end up not being as big a fan of this particular story, it always makes for nice cover displays. So number 8 on my list of Green Lantern comics that you should be looking at buying right now is, and I did break this out from the earlier run that I listed, number 8 is Green Lantern number 50 from Volume 3. So I decided to break it out from the earlier set because there's a lot going on in this particular issue. So Hal Jordan's transition to the villain Parallax becomes complete in this issue, and it's punctuated with the deaths of Sinestro and Kilowog, both at Jordan's hands. In addition, it's the first appearance of Kyle Rayner as the new Green Lantern, and it's really the conclusion of a tragedy that many felt was unfair treatment for a character as long-lasting as Jordan. But it was also an early example of the Batman quote from the film, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain." I felt that in the Rebirth miniseries, Johns did a really good job of retconning the turn of Hal Jordan from hero to villain. So in hindsight, I can kind of appreciate this title a little bit more. It's well worth owning and reading the entire storyline because it really was quite a storyline at the time. And I'll say this: in the course of comics history, we've seen several characters that have quote unquote been mishandled. I don't know that you can really call any storyline a complete mistake. There's a couple probably, but I think this was an interesting way that the editorial staff and the writing staff at the time decided to phase out Hal Jordan and replace him with Kyle Rayner. And I think a lot of people who had been longtime fans, older fans, were not big fans of that because they didn't feel like that was right for the character. But then I think a lot of new fans, thought it was neat to see a brand new Green Lantern that they'd never seen before, that was brand new and was introduced, and he wasn't one of the ones that had come before. He was just completely fresh and new, and I thought that was pretty neat because I like to watch, or I like to read the interaction between the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern and the Wally West Flash together in the Justice League comic, which launched at around the same time. JLA, and that was a really great comic series. Had the Big Seven re-engaged in the title, and that drew out of the events of this particular issue. So Green Lantern number 50 from Volume 30 is definitely a book worth picking up, and it's definitely an affordable key. They are starting to go up ever since that announcement about the HBO Max series had gone live. You have seen a lot of Green Lantern keys start to get some attention, but they're still incredibly underpriced and undervalued. So I would definitely be looking at Green Lantern because not a lot of people are paying attention to him right now. and that's when you look to pick up some deals. Number 7 on my list of Green Lantern comics that you should be buying right now is Green Lantern number 59 from Volume 2. So this is the first appearance of Guy Gardner, the backup Green Lantern for Hal Jordan. Now, Guy Gardner isn't exactly the most popular, beloved Green Lantern, but he is an important part of the overall Green Lantern legacy. He's sure to appear in live action and should be suitably entertaining given his comic history. While he's generally portrayed in a somewhat obnoxious fashion, he does have several great qualities and could really provide an interesting character study moving forward. Granted, his comic history has been more than a little spotty. He's ready for reshaping in the hands of a capable filmmaker and actor team. As an example of what can be done with different types of characters, I would point at the recent breakout success of the Adrian Chase vigilante character that we saw in Peacemaker. Nobody was paying attention to Vigilante. Nobody was clamoring for a Vigilante solo title. Nobody was in any way, shape, or form raving about that character. But then James Gunn took him, added him to an incredible ensemble cast with excellent screenwriting, a strong story, and just a fun premise. And all of a sudden, Vigilante is a breakout character. People are searching for his first appearance. It's shot up in value. And everybody can't wait to see him return to the screen for Peacemaker Season 2. I would say Guy Gardner is absolutely poised to be that same kind of breakout character. Because, obviously he wouldn't be written the same way that he is in the comic books. But if you can, just kind of imagine with me that transition to the screen in the hands of a really strong filmmaker and putting a really strong actor in the role, you could have comedy gold. You could have some really good stuff there. So that's a personal pick for me, saying, hey, you ought to pay attention to that book. Number 6 on my list of books of Green Lantern comics that you should be buying right now is Green Lantern Rebirth number 1. So the decision for Hal Jordan to become a villain and be replaced by Kyle Rayner caused a pre-internet meltdown within fandom. Even though Kyle Rayner finally earned his place as a Green Lantern in his own right, the decision to finally bring back Hal Jordan and restore him to his former glory, retconning his transformation into a villain, was a welcome relief for fans everywhere. Now, I've put number 1 on the list, but as always, I recommend the entire miniseries. It's a solid story, and it does an excellent job at honoring Jordan's history while setting him up as a mainstay of the modern DC universe. I will say that I thought one of the best jobs at retconning was the way Jeff Johns went into the printed history and picked up certain bits and pieces of Hal Jordan's recent history and used all that to construct this idea that an alien parasite named Parallax had taken control of Jordan, rather than Jordan becoming a villain and deciding to call himself Parallax. It was a huge, well done move on Jeff Johns' part. And I think all the little touches, like explaining how Jordan's white hair, temple streaks, and just little things that had happened with the character in recent years, I thought it did a fantastic job of retconning something that had been somewhat controversial and making it all gel together. And we got to see him do the same thing with Flash, with the Barry Allen Flash, and then later on with Hawkman. All solid characters that we need to be paying attention to as collectors. So, if you have any interest in any of these characters, one of the big reasons I do these lists is to help collectors say, hey, if you have any interest in picking this book up, now is the time to do it, because if it goes up in value, it's just going to be a bunch of extra money that you're going to have to put into it. And like me, I always try to, the books that I'd really like to have in my personal collection, I try to get to them before everybody's paying attention to them. So, number 5 on my list is Green Lantern number 76, Volume 2. So, it's already an iconic cover, but the importance of this book goes much deeper. This issue is when the book was retitled as Green Lantern Green Arrow. So it's considered by many to be the official end of the Silver Age of comic books and the first issue of the Bronze Age. Also, this issue ushered in an age of comics in which controversial social themes and issues became more central to many storylines during this time period. Those who feel that comics offering social commentary is a recent invention, well, this book was published in February of 1970. It's 52 years ago. 52 years ago, before a lot of us were born, comic books were political. That's right, they were. It's not me, it's just looking at the history of it. The story centers around Hal Jordan's misinterpretation of a situation involving a young black tenant and an older white landlord. Jordan thinks the older man to be the victim, but is shamed when he's informed that the actual situation is of the young black man being taken advantage of by an unfair, unethical landlord. This kicked off a run of socially conscious Green Lantern, Green Arrow stories in which drugs and other social injustices were confronted head-on and addressed through comics. Number 4 on my list of Green Lantern comics that you should be buying right now is Justice League number 31, Volume 1. So this is the first appearance of Jessica Cruz as a Green Lantern. I will confess I didn't know much about this Green Lantern, and I still don't, but I can see a lot of potential with this one and the Simon Baz character, whose first appearance also made this list. I think a lot can still happen with the character, and she's well worth picking up, especially at a max buy-in price of $30 to $40 for a high-grade raw copy. Number 3 on my list of Green Lantern comics that you should be checking out and possibly buying right now is Free Comic Book Day, The New 52, number 1. So this preview issue is the first appearance of Simon Baz. At a price of $15 to $30 for a raw copy in high grade, it's not a bad investment. Graded copies, of course, will run higher, and in my honest opinion, are currently overpriced. My personal threshold for this book would be $120 in a CGC 9.8 or $105 to $110 in a CBCS 9.8. Don't at me for the price differential, it's fair, you know it. Alright, for a raw copy, $30 for a very, very high grade is the maximum I personally would pay, but that's just me. If you're a big Simon Baz or Green Lantern fan, I could see paying $150 to $170 for a CGC 9.8 copy. But, you know, look, let's face it, it's a modern book. And it's a free comic book day edition at that. There's no shortage of them, even in high grade. So do your homework, keep your electronic payment ready, and watch for the right deal to come along. You know, I've said it before in videos like this, and I'm going to go ahead and say it again. The way I hunt for grails is I stock my electronic payment account, whatever it might be, you know, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, whatever your electronic payment method of choice is, stock it with what your max amount is to spend on that book, and then keep an eye out. And you know, even put the word out. For my 2022 personal collecting goals, I've actually had several of those books come to me rather than me finding them, because people saw me publishing it and would send me a direct message and say, hey, I saw on your list that you're looking for this book. I happen to have a copy. It's this grade, here's some pictures, this is what I'm asking for it. And you know what? In at least 3 of those cases, I went ahead and made the purchase because, you know, people knew it was a good deal, and I went ahead and made the purchase. So, you know, do your homework, basically. Number 2 on my list of Green Lantern comics that you should be picking up right now is Green Lantern number 1, Volume 2. So this is definitely the highest priced book on the list. This is the first issue of the second volume of the solo titled series, and it's the beginning of Hal Jordan's run on the title. So you're looking at $1,000 to even get into a decent copy, with mid and high grades going astronomical. This is absolutely a precious metals book if there ever was one, and it's a pricey one at that. The only copy for sale on eBay at the time of this recording was listed for $750, and it was only notated as being complete in the listing. No grade was assigned. Pictures showed a split spine, moisture damage, and plenty of wear and tear. Definitely not a beginner book, and maybe not even for an intermediate collector. But as always, I try to have something for everyone on these lists. It's definitely a book that will continue to appreciate over time, and it's always a solid buy for a Green Lantern fan, a fan of the Silver Age, or just a comics fan in general. This book is going to go up in value. I do not believe that it's at any type of a ceiling right now. I do suggest one other personal hint. I suggest purchasing a nice raw copy from a very trusted dealer, a dealer that you know and trust, whether it's online or whether it's a local comic shop. That's where you should be looking for a book like this. Someplace where they can help you determine if any restoration's been done to it. They can help you determine if the book is complete. Count those pages. I encountered a Golden Age Batman that I actually considered purchasing, and I hadn't counted the pages yet, and it ended up being it was missing like 2 wraps inside, like 2 whole sheets were missing from the inside of it, in addition to it just being completely destroyed. Very low grade copy. So this is definitely not a book that you want to make one of your first purchases. If you have, if you're affluent and you have the excess cash and you're a beginner, I would suggest paying the premium for a CGC book. If you're an intermediate collector and you've purchased big books, and by big books I mean $1,000 or more for one single book, then you probably could branch out a little bit more on this. But as always, be cautious in making these purchases, and buy what be cautious, buy what you love, do your research, and here's the thing: the price that you pay, make sure that you're going to be happy with the price that you paid, even if it fluctuates in the near term. But these classic Silver Age books, the growth trend is that they all will appreciate over time. Now, how much time that is, if you're going to keep it for 20 years, yeah, you're definitely going to see a huge return on that investment. But, if you're looking to try to sell it for a gain within like 6 months or a year or even 2 years, this is not one of those books to be doing that with. Unless you can buy it in a collection. That's a whole separate video series. All right, so number 1 on my list for Green Lantern comics that you should be buying right now is Green Lantern number 87, volume 2. So this is the first appearance of John Stewart, one of the most visible and popular Green Lantern Corps members. Now, while Hal Jordan remains the definitive Green Lantern for most comic book collectors, John Stewart has become an increasingly recognizable character. Written by John Broome and Denny O'Neil, this story features John Stewart's selection as the next Green Lantern of Section 2814 when Guy Gardner is injured. Keep in mind, this issue features interior and iconic cover art by the late Neil Adams. I'm sure collectors' opinions on the John Stewart Green Lantern will vary, but for this list, I chose to put this issue in the number 1 spot. This book, in low to mid grade, can be readily found online for $400 and under, grade and seller dependent. My thought process on this is that as time goes on, this book will only rise in value, especially if Warner Brothers Discovery can get their DC Comics film library in order. John Stewart is sure to be an extensive, integral part of the cosmic side of the DC universe should they get it together. You know, I know that Hal Jordan is the definitive Silver Age Green Lantern, the definitive kind of modern era, really the definitive Green Lantern. And I do absolutely believe that he's going to be an integral part of anything that they might do with Green Lantern. But we cannot ignore that the popularity in pop culture of Jon Stewart has risen dramatically within the past couple of decades. So that's why I chose to put it at number 1. But hey, thanks so much for watching this top 10 list about Green Lantern comics that you should be buying right now. I want to hear from you. What do you think of the list? Are there any that I missed out on? Are there any that you think I should have not included? Others that I should have put in their place? I want to hear from you. As always, if you take the time to leave a comment, I'll take the time to respond. Make sure you like this video. Like I said, leave a comment. Above all, consider subscribing. As of the recording of this video, we are just a couple of people shy of breaking the 1,000 subscriber mark. Awesome achievement. I'm very excited and happy about how the channel has grown over the past year as I've been producing this content and as you've gotten to hang out with me and we've gotten to talk and interact. So thank you so much for watching tonight, and I hope that this helps you get some good ideas for Green Lantern comics to add to your collection. Again, thanks so much for being a part of this community. It means the world to me. Keep on collecting those comics, and I hope that you have a great rest of your weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.